Welcome back to Twist. Welcome to the pre-show. Jason is getting his mics and cameras and lights and headphones and everything else all turned on. But I figured I'd drop in and say hi. A big shout out to our noties early on the live stream today. We have Andrew, we have Jake, and we have I'm gonna butcher your name, my friend. Let's go ahead and say it's my siege. Sorry, man. Your name is beautiful, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, happy Friday, and welcome to a stock market day when stocks are actually up versus down. I know it's been a pretty trash couple of weeks for everyone out there who owns equities, aka all of us, but it's nice to end the week in the green at least. Although, and we're going to start the show with this actually, if I can fit it in. But apparently, when the S&P 500, the major American index, went from peak to trough, it was just in technical correction territory, which is, if you're curious, a 10% sell-off from a recent high, and that was about a $5 trillion decline. That's a lot of money. That's an enormous amount of deleted wealth. So when we talk about these declines, don't just think about your 401k or your index funds or whatever your saving vehicle is. The market really just lost a lot of money today. Global wealth effectively went down, which is bad for LPs and exits and comps and all that. So something we're paying attention to. Not gonna lie. But today, for folks who want a preview of the show, a couple of things. First of all, we have lots of notes on the Open AI pitch for kind of American AI competitiveness. Unsurprisingly, Jason and I think are going to focus a bit on the copyright related materials. And if you want to go through this with me, by the way, the docket, of course, is public. thisweekinstartups.com/docket. Comments are always turned on, so you can drop notes into the docket. Normally we do the show a little bit later. Today we're early, so we didn't tweet it out and such because Jason has a plane to catch. So we're fitting things in, as it were. The thing that I'm most excited about today, though, is Harry Stebbings is coming on. I've only actually met Harry, I think, once in public. I think we were backstage at like a SaaStr event getting our makeup done, if memory serves. That was 1,000 years ago. But it's good to have him here. He's, of course, working on the Project Europe effort that Jason and I talked about on Wednesday. I was pretty pro. Jason was, let's say, skeptical. So I'm looking forward to hopefully a spicy but useful debate on European competitiveness in the current technology cycle. So looking forward to that. And then if we have time, I want to dig into this idea of barbelling. If you're in the docket, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the gist is, if you look at a barbell, it's a skinny bar with like weights on each side. And the idea is you can often see extreme grouping on the outsides of an axis. And so in this case, what we're seeing, just preview again, startups that are raising very little or an absolute mountain. And the question is why we're seeing those dynamics today and what it means for venture. Also, a couple of startup deals and then some pretty sad economic news. And that's kind of the rundown. So glad you're here. And I am going to have Lon jump on and have a quick chat. So let's bring Lon up to help me kill another minute or two while Jason finishes getting his setup. Lon, there you are.
I'm great at killing a minute or two. That's why I'm here.
You are my favorite lumberjack, and yeah.
Thank you. I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day. It's an old Monty Python bit for you.
If you haven't seen Monty Python, where would you actually send people to start to watch their first? Like, what's the first sketch you would have someone watch?
I think it's on. Oh, I mean, like Dead Parrot is a very famous one. That's like the Lumberjack song is great, but there is one called. There's a Monty Python sketch called Argument Clinic that I think is arguably the best.
Is this the one when he goes through the rooms trying to find the right one to have his argument? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, no, this is abuse. You want down the hall, idiot. So he's going to all these different weird. It's like a company or a public office, like a civil servant's office, but you can go get an argument for cheap if you want to pay somebody to just argue with you. And it's Graham Chapman and John Cleese. It's an absolute classic. It's one of the great comedies.
It absolutely is. And it's one of my early ones too. I would throw in the cheese shop.
I love Cheese Shop also, where he's asking about all they have no cheese.
Tell me the truth. Yeah. And if you answer in the negative, I'm going to kill you. Do you have any cheese?
I'm going to shoot you. Yes. And he goes, really? No, I'm sorry, sir. No, we don't. I was completely wasting your time. It's that was John Cleese
classic. Although I will say, I think the Philosopher's Drinking Song and the Philosopher's Football Match are also two of the apex.
Yeah. It's weird because I loved that show and those sketches
Yeah.
when I was a kid, way before I knew who any of those philosophers. Like you go back years later and you're like, oh, I actually do get these references now. But as a child, I didn't know David Hume. It was just a funny song to me.
David Hume could outconsume Schopenhauer and Hegel. Okay.
Willem Friedrich Hegel, yeah. And Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just a schloss to Schlegel.
Let's pull up.
But I didn't know what
the
any of those words meant.
Can we show videos and not get copyright striked?
I don't know. I mean, Monty Python was a long time ago.
I think
so
Jason's
maybe
here and we're ready to rock. So I'm just gonna drop you on it and bring on the chat.
Fair enough. Next time we'll get back to Python chat next time.
Jason.
Wow.
Bye, fans.
Getting bounced. All right. The song goes, while we wait for Jason, Immanuel Kant was a real passant who was very rarely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could drink you under the table. David Hume could outconsume William Friedrich Hegel, and Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just as sloshed as Schlegel. There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach you about the raising of the wrist, and Socrates himself. Oh, Jason is here. I'll stop quoting Monty Python sketches. Jason, come on live. There you are. Hey.
Hey, good morning.
You saved the audience from culture.
Yes, there you go. I have no idea what you guys were doing, but I guess you're just driving away the audience. Great. Awesome. I heard a limerick.
We were going through our favorite Monty Python sketches.
Oh, okay. That's valid. That's super valid. Not that anybody knows what that is if you're under 40, I think.
Lon was going for the under 30s, but I think actually, let's be honest, if you're under 40, 50-50 at best.
All right.
But yeah.
My quick time's at a minute, and I'm on the right input. Sure, MV7. So let's get started.
We're live. Take us away.
Oh, okay. 3, 2. All right, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. He's Alex. Welcome. I'm Jason Calacanis. And Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, typically at noon Texas time, but today a little early because I'm heading out with my daughters for ski week. Yeah, very excited for ski week. Yes. 24 days right now, Alex. I'm going to try to get in 9 days. 9 plus 24 is over 30. I think it's in fact 33. So if I get 32, 33 days, then I am within spitting distance of my 41 ski day goal. Now, I don't want to exaggerate, Alex. These are 2 or 3 hour ski days. I'm not out there for 8 hours. I do the executive program. I'm the executive old man program.
Well, good, because I'm hoping to do a couple shows with you next week. And if you're out doing 10-hour days on the slopes, it's going to be tough to have you call in. So
yeah, calling in for the lift. Hopefully this year I don't get trapped on a lift. Last year I got trapped on a lift for about, a full 15, 20 minutes. And I decided I would tweet it. And then, of course, everybody's looking for the drama. So everybody was like, do we need to call, the mountain to rescue you or whatever? And I'm like, no, there's 10,000 people on this, whatever. Yeah. There's thousands of people on this mountain. They're quite aware that this lift is not working and people are doing shots while they wait.
Yes. I can see that going one of two ways because I've been on a lot of ski lifts. Sometimes if the weather's nice and you can see for a distance and it's clear, I mean, I wouldn't mind 15 minutes of sightseeing. I've also been on lifts when it's been driving snow, horizontal, and that would be this was during a beautiful flurry. So it was beautiful, but yeah, when you got 2 daughters on the lift with you, they're ready to go. So, yep.
So what do we got on the docket today? What do we got? I know we have a great guest today.
We do have a great guest. We have about 15 minutes until they are here. We are dealing with transatlantic time zones. So Jason, I thought we would start with the thing that you and I are most peevish about today, which is OpenAI's amazing pitch for the future of American AI dominance and why that means we must, I would say, dissolve domestic copyright protections.
Okay. So yeah, I saw this come across my feed, one of the group chats. OpenAI has published recommendations to the White House Office of Science and Technology for a U.S. AI action plan. These, I don't want to say something inappropriate here, but this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. They say here that China won't respect copyright. Yeah, of course, duh. That is like one of our major issues with the country. And they say that's giving them a strategic advantage in the AI game. The fact that Chinese can and do steal American IP gives them an advantage. Yes, this is correct. Also, if you steal gold if you steal, if you enslave people in your own country, this also gives you a strategic advantage. You can ask the Uyghurs working in slave labor concentration camps in China today, upwards of 1 million, according to sources. So yes, the Chinese do have some horrible things they do that give them an advantage. Maybe you could read for us what they are actually saying in their own words, they being the OpenAI team.
Yes. So as Jason said, OpenAI says that, China has an advantage in its ability to benefit from copyright arbitrage. Essentially, they don't have IP protections in the same way that we do, especially about content from outside their borders. And so if there is a regime in the United States, for example, that is a bit more, I don't know, Jason, economically expensive for AI companies, it could put domestic AI firms at a disadvantage. And the way that OpenAI frames this is essentially by saying that this is a matter of, quote, national security, their words. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and OpenAI is just a terrible company. I just got to say it right now. They make a great product, but I don't trust this company. And, I'm friendly with Sam, but, I really think Sam has an ethics problem. Obviously, flipping the company from a for-profit to a nonprofit, saying I don't have any equity. Now I've got 10 billion, 20 billion in equity. I think there might be, I'm reading into this, a reason why his top leaders have all left and started their own companies is because of that ethics challenge that the firm has. Mm-hmm. Doing this type of thing, using the Chinese and their illegal, immoral behavior as your model and as your excuse to do that here is really low. It's really low. And it's kind of gross, I have to say. We don't set our morality at what a dictatorship halfway around the world does to their people. They're living in a police state, to IP. They're stealing from artists and innovators. Here's an idea.
Okay.
You took a nonprofit, you got to $10 billion in revenue or so, and it's worth $350 billion. Why don't you do what Spotify does? Why don't you do what Apple does, which is pay content creators for using their content? Apple could come out and say, gosh, Tim Cook, they don't pay for music over in China. They steal it. They sell it on street corners, on thumb drives, every song ever created. There's millions of websites in Russia that will restream all of the live feeds of the MMA fights and sports and stuff like that. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to steal content. I don't think that means we should do it that way. You should pay. Spotify pays. So pay us, content creators, and create a sustainable model. It's ridiculous. And then also creating all this regulation is a way to kill startups. So Sam is playing dirty. I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, obviously, but I'm not surprised. And I think Sam needs to really think this through a little bit better.
I think there's another element in OpenAI's pitch here that I think is actually a little bit pernicious. So one thing they also said, and I'm going to pull this up on screen here. America has so many AI startups, attracts so much investment, and has made so many research breakthroughs, largely because the fair use doctrine promotes AI development. In other markets, it's different. For example, the EU has created, quote, text and data mining exceptions with broadly applicable, quote, opt-outs for any rights holder. This makes things more unpredictable. This sounds to me like not only does OpenAI want to have very, very permissive use of copyright materials rules, but also wants to say that rights holders should not have the ability to opt out of being included in AI data sets. And that's going from saying that your copyright doesn't matter. It's saying that your copyright doesn't matter and I have a right to take your stuff without your permission. So it seems slightly more vicious, Jason.
It's very simple. You're not wrong. If YouTube wants to take This Week in Startups, which we host on YouTube, and they want to train their AI on, and I don't have a problem with that. Send me a little message in the interface. Would you like to opt in to Gemini? Will index, and here are the terms and conditions. It's a 1 year, it's a 10-year, it's an infinite license, it's a 100-year license, and we'll pay you this amount. Mm-hmm. And just give me a dollar amount. I say yes, I say no. Let's say you get 10% of people. Maybe that's enough to train your API. And I said no, so I got none of that money, and the AI went off to the races. Maybe I say yes, and I'm one of the people who gets there. Maybe if only 1% say yes, they've got to raise the price to, $2 an hour of content, whatever it is.
Oh, no.
Come up with a number.
Yes.
And that's called the free market. It's called respecting IP. And you know what? Sam Altman was the first person to complain when DeepSeek stole their model and did reinforcement learning.
Yes.
So you really talk about hypocritical. OpenAI and Sam Altman's the height of hypocrisy. I know I'm getting myself into a Palmer Luckey situation here where people are going to clip this and say I'm dunking on somebody. No, I'm calling balls and strikes. If you don't like it, tune into another program. Balls and strikes. Sam complained when his content, his IP was stolen. Now he's lobbying and trying to use his. Did he give a donation to Trump?
I forget if it was personal or corporate, but I believe there's
fact
$1
check
million.
me, please. I believe he decided he would throw in $1 million to Trump. I don't know if that was personally or from OpenAI.
According to this, it was Sam Altman of OpenAI as opposed to OpenAI's Sam Altman.
Okay, great. So Sam Altman paying $1 million. Here's my note. I don't know if I know anybody involved in AI in the new Trump administration. Here's what they should do. If there was somebody, like a leader in the administration, dare I say, a czar of AI.
Oh, interesting. I think we have one of those.
Yeah. Yes. So if I ever met him, I'd say, don't fall for it. It's a trap. Sam Altman is giving $1 million to Trump, to his inauguration fund, to try to buy his way out of a New York Times lawsuit. That's what's happening here.
Yes.
They're trying to figure out that, what's cheaper? The $1 billion judgment they'll get against them from the New York Times. I think it could be $1 billion judgment against them. Certainly 9 figures. And that's a speeding ticket for a $350 billion company, but it's a precedent. Every single content company that hears my voice, Bob Iger from Disney, General Zod from Warner Brothers Discovery, anybody, Rupert Murdoch. I'm calling all the media leaders, the super friends of content, as it were, the Justice League, get together and then crush OpenAI with lawsuits. Crush them with an infinite number of lawsuits. Every single infraction you find, file a lawsuit on behalf of that content creator. So you don't have to just do a Disney one. And I'm not saying lawfare here. I'm saying fair law. They could get together, put a pool of $100 million together and say any creator who feels that they have their content stolen and has proof of it, please send it to us, and we will file on behalf of them. You know how Peter Thiel did this, back the lawsuit
with Gawker and
Hulk Hogan. This is a new method of helping people who can't afford, whether you agree with it or not, can't afford, the sustained $10, $20 million you need to protect your copyright or protect your rights. This would be a way to do that. And whoever cracked open a cold would enjoy.
I was trying to mute myself as I opened my fizzy waters.
I was like, oh, somebody cracked open a cold one.
It is indeed a cold one.
Couple of beers. Shane Gillis, couple of beers. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse.
No. I want you to stay on your high horse because I think the disgruntlement you're describing, I think, matters because people say, okay, Jason and Alex, you guys are clearly, you have a history in media. You guys are biased here. What about the links? What about the sources? Well, I was reading this morning the Tollbit, a Twist 500 company, Q4 AI bot executive report. And I found a very interesting stat that I'm going to share with everybody. From the report, they says that despite AI search companies' claims, Tollbit sees that AI bots on average are driving 96% less click-through traffic than trad Google search. So what we are supposed to do is give away our information, let someone else use it for free, make money off it, and then give us nothing back. And to me, there is no part of the value chain here that is functional for people who make content, make media, make words. And so to me, Sam Altman's argument is inherently self-defeating. Even if you grant his point, what you're going to do is rip the carpet out from underneath people who make the words he needs next year to train his models.
It's short-term greed. It's just greed. And it's selfish on behalf of OpenAI. They're being selfish and greedy.
Yes.
If you screw content creators, how are you going to feed the LLM next year, 10 years from now? It's very simple. Be a leader, Sam. Be a leader, OpenAI. You're the leader in the space. You're a top 10 website. Come up with a plan to pay content creators. It's not difficult. Put out a shingle. You can work. There's a half dozen companies. We have an investment in one. that are doing clearing rights. I'm not going to plug any specific one here, but there'll be plenty of ways for you to say to an author like myself, hey, the book Angel's dope. I want to license it. How do you feel about a 3-year license? How do you feel about 10-year? You know what? I will tweet. I will send traffic to you. So actually, can somebody on my to-do list put signing that agreement with Microsoft? I forgot to sign it for my book. It's like $2,000, $3,000.
Jason,
That Microsoft. Yeah, somebody on the team will put it on my to-do list. I have a to-do list that people help me with. I'm going to do that agreement with Microsoft because I just want to set the precedent here. It's a 3-year deal. It's $2,500. I mean, listen, I play, that's the pre-flop raise in some poker games I play. It's not going to do anything for me, but I do want to set a precedent here. Set the precedent that content creators deserve to be paid and respected, because I can tell you, OpenAI wants their IP protected. They're the first ones crying foul when the Chinese stole their content. So yeah. I have a name a new disgraziad.com. Please, Heidi on my team, forward disgraziad.com to this OpenAI document. Thank you. And I'll end my rant here. Or you can to the clip of this on the Twist Clip channel, even better. Disgraziad.com. We have a guest here. I really love our next guest. He's a hard worker. He's a salt of the earth guy.
All right. So Wednesday, Jason and I were talking about Project Europe. I was very excited by this. I thought it was very bullish. Jason was a little bit skeptical of the dollar amount and the focus. So what we did is we dragged Harry Stebbings, the founder of Project Europe. You know him from 20-Minute VC, the show, 20 VC, the venture firm. Let's bring Harry up. Harry.
Here he is.
There he is. Hey,
my guy. How you doing, Harry?
There we go.
Time.
It is lovely to see you both. And Alex, I don't think you know this, but Jason gave me the most seminal advice in content 8 years ago. He said, it's a simple game. It's a game of who can survive the longest. Just keep going. And genuinely, it is probably some of the best advice I've ever been given in content. And I continuously think back to it when times are hard.
It's never easy, is it? 20-Minute VC, great program. And Harry has a great fund and he invests a whole bunch. And, it's a lot of people take notes and then they don't ever give any credit to the people maybe they took some notes from. You've always been like a gentleman about that. And I have to as well, because where I got that piece of advice was when I convinced Peter Rojas to leave Gizmodo.
Wow.
Because Nick Denton. I've got supervillains on my mind. Other supervillain in this JCal extended Marvel universe. In the JCal universe, another supervillain is Nick Denton, who I'm friendly with. It's kind of like a Batman Joker kind of relationship we have. You complete me. I need you. I don't want you to die, JCal.
That's a very good impression.
No, I need you. They'll throw you away just like they did me.
How did we end up there?
Well, because Nick
I just
Denton,
want why so serious. That's what I'm waiting for,
why
Alex.
so serious, Alex? It's not an S1.
Sadly.
I'm sorry. I'm in a real mood last night. I got 57 sleep score. So he told me, I was like, hey, listen, you got to leave Gizmodo. How much is Denton paying you? He says, paying me like $12.50 a month. I said, listen, I'll give you equity in Weblogs Inc. and Engadget. Nick promised you equity. He never delivered. I'll give it to you day one. I'll sign the paper right now if you join me. And I'll give you a raise. And I'll give you this new MacBook Air. I had bought 3 or 4 MacBook Airs, and I was using them to recruit bloggers because MacBook Air was brand new. You remember when?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. So he joined and, became a millionaire. When we sold it, I gave him a pretty sweet deal. In fact, I raised the deal that I originally had. I could have given him less money, but I was like, he was the key here. He was like the keystone in the portfolio of blogs. He said, I said, what's the secret of blogging? He said, you have to show up every day and then don't stop. And I was like, consistency. And then with All In, I said the same thing. I said, listen, to the team, you guys got to take this more serious. Every Thursday has to be sacrosanct. Anyway, long story short.
I did not get 1,000 plays on a show for 2 years. And at one point I was doing 1 a day, so 5 per week working day, and not 1,000 plays for a show for 2 years. I didn't make money for 3 years. I just loved venture, which is why I was friendless for many years.
I always point to you, like I meet young people and they're like, I want to be in venture capital. I'm like, that's a hard place to go. There's not that many seats, right?
Yeah.
It's a small profession. It's a boutique kind of thing. And they say, okay, well, what do I do? Who do I email? Who can you tell to hire me? I'm like, you can tell the world to hire you. Just do what Harry did. Just start interviewing people, be active on social and say, I want a job in venture. I want to do some venture. And then Harry's like, I don't need to have a job. I'll just start my own goddamn venture firm. You know how hard it is? And you're on your fourth fund right now or third?
Yeah, it's now third. One was 8, 2 was 140, 3 was 400.
Incredible.
But I think a lot of people like look at it and want to be me. I was just in a show, and the truth is, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a bulimic, I'm a workaholic. I have heart palpitations. I spend most of the time alone in my head. It's not always great.
I didn't know we were so similar. Hi,
Alex. I always thought we were.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I have to say, some of the people I know in my life who have that, including Alex, they're the most thoughtful, courageous, hardworking people. They just need to understand that certain things aren't for them, right? And alcohol's not for you. Alcohol's not for Alex. It's not for anybody. I'm telling you, it's poison. But you just have to know what you're good at and what you're not, and create a little discipline.
I was literally just with a founder that I think is fantastic and I'd love to try and find a way to invest in. I started the conversation with that and he said, I've spoken to 50 VCs and they all say, oh, we have a thesis here and we do seed to A and this is how we add value. No one's ever started a call with that. I feel like I've got to know you in a way that I haven't got to know anyone in this process. Yeah. And I think this is it. People want to buy from people. Yes. And at the end of the day, everything touches a consumer and you just have to bluntly be honest and show yourself.
Being human is highly underrated. You can see that in social media. I was like training some people on social media and like they're talking to me and they're like making great insights. And I'm like, okay, now tweet that. And then they get in front of the tweet box and they're like, I'm going to now talk like a marketer. And I'm like, what? How can you text me something so insightful? And then when you tweet, you don't. They're like, oh, well, I was trying to write that. I'm like, don't write it, just say it. Yep. And then whatever you said, put that in the tweet. They're like, oh, that's how it works. Yeah, be a human.
I have a genuine question for you before we just dive in. I know you want to dive in. Jason, you get a lot of heat now, especially with All In and the fame that you have. How do you create emotional barriers to stop it hurting you?
Wow, that's really great. So I grew up in Brooklyn, where you have to survive an onslaught of people telling your mom jokes on the stoop and, just absolutely roasting each other. So when I get roasted, or Palmer Luckey comes and dunks on me, or, some people, then his co-investors and his partners try to like dunk on me. I'm just like, oh, these guys are hilarious. Like, who cares? Like the fact that they're even going after a podcast or angel investor because I said, whatever I said about him and the news reports I read, like, okay, who cares? Like, you want to try to pin me as X, Y, or Z, like go for it. What's much more important is the work you do in the world, right? And so the work you're doing in the world is what's important. If somebody's jealous of you, Harry, which a lot of people are, because, hey, most people can't raise funds. It's hard to raise a fund. And you just keep going out there, doing more episodes, raising more funds. That is tweaking to people, especially if an outsider does it, who didn't come, via Harvard Business School, Stanford. That is very, very tweaking for people who are elites to see people come, from the bottom up and then just take their position. So the haters make you greater. The other thing I find with the haters is, in my case, the jaders, they
I hate that.
Good branding. Good branding.
I brand them, right? Because
can we bleep jaders?
The jaders are, as I always said from the beginning of the program, the jaders make me greater. So when Palmer Luckey's dunking on me, you know what? He did make me greater in a way, because now when I do a news story, I'm like, if this is true, I don't assume the news story is true, because he's like, you assume the news story is true. It wasn't true. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you sue them or whatever. And, I'm like, but now I'm like, maybe he's right in that instance. Like, maybe this news story isn't true. Maybe he got set up. Maybe it wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. Because we have seen like some news stories wind up being, incorrect at a level that maybe is greater. So the haters will make you greater. They typically will say, this person's terrible. I hate them. Here's like a really great insight that would make them better. And then I hate them, kill yourself. And you just have to be willing to take those two, the beginning and the intro and the outro out, and just look for what maybe they do have a point somewhere in there in their hatred. And that's almost universal. And a lot of times that insult sandwich that I'll get, the meat of it, they might have like a really good coaching tip. You know, it might actually be like, you know, some NBA player saying like, oh, you're too soft, you know, and like, you should have dunked that. And it's like, okay, next time I'll dunk it. You know, next time I'll say, if this report is true, you know, and that actually then becomes a superpower. That becomes a superpower. And that's what you will do. Like, what's the latest insult you got that hit you? Which one stung?
I mean, there's very blunt ones, which I find always humorous, where they're just like, "You're a bleep."
Yeah.
I think when people really criticize my interviewing style, I really care about the quality of the shows. It is an art to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when people say that is bad, shit, could be done better, or very viciously, obviously, I'm kind of sugarcoating it. That upsets me. Yeah.
Interesting. What is it about the interview style that they point out? Do they have like you interrupt too much?
Exactly.
Or your sentences are too long?
I interrupt too much.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're guiding a guest to a particular conversation, you kind of have to shepherd them that way.
Yes. So here's a note for you. This is what I did when people said I was interrupting too much, because sometimes the good piece of feedback in there is when they're listening on their headphones, they're starting to get into a moment where the guest is really cooking, and then you are kind of steering the guest, but they want the guest to cook a little more. Just next time you do an interview, put a little stopwatch on the side of your desk and watch it. And then after you finish your question, hit the lap button and just say, I'm not going to interrupt for a minimum of 1 minute. And then I'm going to let it breathe when they finish for 5 seconds. And then just see if you like it better. It's your show, but you can actually take that as a tip.
I think one of the most important things is actually being comfortable in silence. Often, the moment after silence is when greatness happens. There's a brilliant Elon Musk interview where there's silence, and then he reflects on that. And what comes next is what is so special.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think about getting comfortable in those awkward at times silences.
Yeah.
Give people rope. That's where the good stuff comes from. But respecting everyone's time, guys, we got to drill this back down. We got to talk about Europe, because this is what I'm a hot trot to talk about. So, Harry, just to be clear, Project Europe, new fund, 10 million euro, going to put 200,000 euros into young EU founders. I think you had 120 people that were going to help provide mentorship to begin with. You tweeted out that there's now another couple of hundred. Lots of questions from the audience and from us about this, but did I miss anything in the outline of your push to rebuild European dynamism?
No, listen, honestly, every day I meet incredible young entrepreneurs in Europe, and I met more and more, and the predominant advice they were getting was, you have to leave Europe. It's shit to build businesses here. You have to go to the US. And it's simply not true. We can build amazing businesses here. And I wanted to fundamentally change the vibes. You can bluntly denigrate the word vibes a lot, but actually just positive vibes is a lot for an ecosystem. And I wanted to change the vibes, let young people know that you can build businesses here and that they don't have to go and leave their families to build a massive business. And Spotify and Revolut and Adyen and all these amazing businesses show that. And that was the genesis.
What is the deal? When I heard the concept, I was like, oh, Peter Thiel fellows in some ways, right? There's 200,000 going to each one. Is it an investment, or is it like Peter Thiel, like a grant with no expectation of return? What is it?
Yeah, no, so it's an investment. I did the studies on basically how grants are used differently to investments, and basically grants are held with less accountability and less responsibility. Not that they're bad. In certain cases, they can be great, but traditionally, that is how they are viewed. It's like when you give free classes, the participation is lower than if they're paid for.
Yep.
And so I thought that an investment would structure it right. It would structure the responsibility and the accountability right for the person who gets it. And
is it a standard deal? Is it like 200K for 5%, for 2%? For
yeah,
100%?
it's 200K for 6.6%, but there's
so it's Y Combinator, basically. Same standard deal. Yeah,
exactly. But there's elasticity around it. If you've got a round that's already happened, that's been preempted, you have to always be willing to move. Elasticity is everything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the archetypal deal, but absolutely we have the flexibility to move with it.
What is the condition? You have to stay in Europe? You have to stay for a certain number of years? Do you have to commit to something, or you just have to be part of the vibes?
Not at all. You need to be in Europe at the time, but restricting someone's personal freedoms on movement would probably be a restriction on human rights. And then
actually, there's somebody doing it in there's a couple of people in the United States who say, we'll give you this money, you have to commit to 1 year in the
Wasn't that what you did with Alex? You said you just can't leave the home.
Yes,
got to stay
I said,
in
the shed, lock the door. That's
I love the bookshelf. Stay there.
You guys are funny, but literally a story that we're not talking about today is this one from The Information about how now DeepSeek's employees are having their passports taken, and so they can't leave the country. So we joke, but in certain markets, this is how it works.
Well, they clearly have stronger views than me on that. And so kind of that, no, we do not restrict them in that way. But then also I wanted to make it not a 20 VC thing, not a me thing, which is why I honestly, I don't like the articles or the pictures about me. I think people also think I like the attention. I don't. I really don't. I only do the media stuff because I wanted to be an investor and I didn't go to Goldman Sachs and I'm a dropout. Yeah. I don't actually love being center of attention, like really. And so we hired an amazing CEO who was out of Entrepreneur First, which is bluntly kind of the European accelerator number one. And she's ran program there for 6 years. She is CEO. She runs it day to day. And hopefully we just empower her to be amazing and build incredible programs.
Okay. I think it's great to plant the flag because there's a reason why entrepreneurs leave. Mm-hmm. And the reason why entrepreneurs leave is it is harder to run a business there. And so I guess my question to you is, what's true in that belief system that needs to change in Europe? So one of the things you're changing is the vibes. Great. But there's a reason why people come here. There's many more investors. The investors here are qualitatively different. You know that. They take more risk. They've had more big wins, so they're a little more comfortable with failure. Regulations are different in Europe, and in fact, there's, Europe is many different countries with different regulations around employment, et cetera. So, if there were 2 or 3 things that need to change in Europe to make that valid criticism that it's easier here, what do you need to change? What notes do you take from America?
Listen, the number one thing is access to talent that's seen scale and success. We do not have the same depth of operators that you have in the US that have seen 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million. We simply do not have that. And so when you hit Series B, C, there is fundamentally a lack of experienced operators who've seen true scale. That takes time. We're seeing more and more, but it is still incredibly prominent as a problem for founders. So I would say absolutely that. Listen, local liquidity markets are completely dead, if we're transparent. You want a statement?
There's no exits there. We have very few here. This is a regulator problem. They want to stop every M&A transaction. It's crazy. And they don't understand what they're doing to innovation. If you don't let the little companies get bought by the medium-sized ones and the medium-sized ones merge and the medium-sized ones sometimes, get bought by the big ones, you basically shock the system. You freeze the lake. They froze the lake.
Jason, the UK blocked Figma. I mean, it was awful.
Ridiculous. What's the vibes over there about that? It's just I told the Figma people, why don't you just block everybody in the UK's IP address from using an Adobe product or Figma? And tell them we don't sell the product in your region, therefore you don't have any jurisdiction over it. It's illegal. Our terms of service say English people can't use the product.
But also we don't have IPO markets. The London Stock Exchange is not what it used to be. It does not hold the same cachet. We don't have the supply side of cash. The local liquidity markets in other, Germany, France are not the same. You have, fantastic market to IPO in.
Alex.
Such a good IPO market that, not to toot my own horn about this point, but here's a headline from a week ago. Figma in talks with bankers to explore an IPO this year. Jason and I have been talking back and forth about the Figma Adobe deal for a while. I want to go back to age and experience, because you said there's not a lot of people in Europe or as many in the United States that have built something to scale and know how to run, post Series C. Fair enough. The mentorship angle of Project Europe makes a lot of sense to me. But the number one question that I've gotten from folks about this project is the age band around who you're looking for. And I mean, Alex Booker, for example, said that he's interested in the age cap of roughly 18 to 25 that you have. I've seen people call it illegal. What's the thinking there? And can you actually have an age cap under EU regulations?
I think you can. I think it's a theme and a thesis, like any firm has. So again, that's the thesis of the firm. And again, it's like a movement and a company that's run by a CEO, but that's the theme and the thesis. So yes, and then I think it's like you've got to start somewhere. Great companies have an ICP in ideal customer profile. We want to speak to the next generation of builders who will build generational defining businesses. You have to start somewhere, and this is where we start. I think bluntly, the criticism and the negativity that has come from this, let's not shy away from it, is bluntly one of the reasons why the Europe is in the situation where we're in, which is because it is easy to throw peanuts from the side, and not many people actually put their neck on the line and build. And quite frankly, I can't change policy, Alex. It takes a long time. I'm not smart enough to. I can't change the decline of the German car industry. I can't help the French or the British lack of growth. But I'm trying to do all that I can to encourage teenagers who have a dream to build a business and to give them a mentorship from amazing people. Sorry, Jason.
No, what you're saying is dead on. And I want to just give you a little bit of fuel. I'm taking the other side. If you're English, you're French or German, I'm waiting for you to come to America. I'll help you get the visa. Yes, come here. And so just so Harry knows, he can take this and show it to those peanut gallery people and say, this is what I'm up against. We would love to have you in here in America. I literally asked Trump on our program, All In, make sure we get green cards for talented people. The administration gets this. To the people of Europe, we want your smartest. We want your best and brightest. We're coming for them.
Okay.
And if you try to stop Harry from what he's doing here, we love it. We love that you overregulate. We want those talented people. It's a war for talent.
Well, this is what the UK government has forgotten, that we are in a global war for talent, and we are fighting against you.
Yes.
And you have a great product, and we are fighting against UAE, which has an even better product by the day. They will pay for a lot of your costs. We have to be very strategic in retaining our best talent and see it as a global war for talent, not a war against France or Germany for talent.
Correct. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have asked this question, but I'm curious what impact patriotism is going to have on this discussion. Because there's a lot of American pride in America. And I would say that it feels like Europe, given the current tensions between my nation and the bloc, is changing its perspective on the US. And so, Harry, I wonder, are people going to be a little bit more, I was born in Europe, I'm going to build in Europe, just given the squabbling, you might say, amongst our various governments?
I don't think so. I think people will fundamentally do what's right for them and what feels best for them in the moment. But that's, again, our job to create the environment tells them you can. Like a doom loop is a very dangerous thing. It's a bit like trust. When it starts, it really goes and it goes fast. And when it gains fast. And so it can be very good or dangerous. And, the doom loop started here and the world suddenly picked up on it. And so for me, it was a case of how do we try and interject and reverse that so that people do feel a sense of patriotism to build here and realize they can.
Okay, then is 10 million euro enough to actually slow the doom loop or perhaps even stop it entirely?
One, I think the biggest problem that we've had over the last few years is that we've stuffed too much cash into people too early. And so I think it's hilarious that people are saying we should have had more. Listen, could we have done more? Are you kidding me? I went out for 25 founders. I went out for 25 founders who would be mentors. I got 150 in 3 days. Since I've had another, I honestly don't know, but at least another double that. So the money was not the issue. It's about choosing unbelievable talent, not just spraying money around, but choosing unbelievable talent, giving them enough to start, to feel like they can build a great business, be mentored by an unbelievably successful founder, one-to-one. The mentors only have one other. This is not like any other, program where you have 10. This is one-to-one. Oh my God. If I had the chance to have Jason as a mentor when I was starting 20 VC, there was so many things I would do differently, I'm sure. And so that's very different. And so honestly, the money thing I think is just ridiculous.
I mean, it's actually great to start at 10 million because what you can do is say, here's the cohort. There were 50 of them. And all we need is but one to actually get to Series A to make this worth it, because the economic viability of a Series A company, that raises 5, 10, 15 million, it's going to shower, that amount of taxes, economic activity. I know this because this founder university that we do, which is like a pre-accelerators for people before they actually have a product or an idea. We have only 40% pull through, but because you're starting so early, you don't need to have 80% pull through like you might want from a seed fund or a Series A fund. You can have a larger number of experiments. And if you frame it as experiments, then you've got the right framing. What's going to happen? I'll predict the next thing. They're attacking you on the age thing, which you can mitigate and say, we're focused on first-time founders, and we're trying to get them to not go into corporate America for the first job, but to start their entrepreneurial journey early. So that's our focus, our ideal customer. But we're open to a 70-year-old, of course. If they want to do it when in their retirement, we'll take a look, sure. And then you just negate the whole thing, and then you just do whatever the hell you want. But they're going to go after you next for, oh my God, 45 of these went to zero, and it's like, look at the second companies. How many of those 45 that the experiments didn't work out, how many of those then did a second company? That's the test.
Do you know what's insane? It's like, yes, we made a lot of noise with it. Did I know we would? Yes. I get distribution like you guys do. I knew that when we had 150 big names pump this, it would be very, very visible. But what's unbelievable is when we invest in companies, every single one of those partners who's invested is really keen to follow on, is really keen to keep track of it. As an 18-year-old building a AI company in Vienna, I now have 150 of the biggest founders in Europe literally following my story who will support me and promote my company. That's insane.
It's pretty great. All right, listen. Keep at it. You're great. You're awesome. Ignore the haters. They make you greater. And congratulations on all the success. And I can't wait to see you soon. And if Europe doesn't want these fine, amazing founders, come to Austin. I'll take you to 3 different barbecue joints. We'll hang out, come by the ranch. Entrepreneurs from Europe. Beautiful here. Cost of living's half of any city in Germany. Tons of young people, tons of freedom. You can get a gun, you can get a ranch, you can get a horse.
Alex, I've never been invited to this trip.
Consider yourself invited. Come on, we'll do a crossover taping anytime you're ready. I don't know if we're letting people from the UK in the country right now.
That's true.
Let you know if
we'll have to see.
I have a friend who wants to go to Europe for the summer and he's staying for more than 2 weeks. His visa got turned down. Now there's a European visa in the summer. Is this true? The EU makes you, as an American, fill out a visa to go? Did you hear about this?
I don't really leave the studio these days.
This is we'll address it on a future episode, but there's a thing where I guess because the European cities were getting too crowded in the summers, like Italy and all the, coastal places, that now you have to file for a visa, and they might want to be controlling the stampede of Americans coming to, what they consider Epcot Center. It's like a part of Disneyland, to see like the old world. And with maybe too many of us coming for July 4th weekend. You're awesome. I'll see you soon, H2.
Amazing. See you.
Bye.
Awesome. He's great.
Talk about just like showing up and just doing stuff. Like, I mean, I was going to squeeze in one more before we let him go, but we didn't have time. But why hasn't anyone done this before? Hearing him talk about it, it just makes so much sense.
In Europe, listen, there's a million programs here in the US, because in the US, people can do crazy. You can just do things. This is the most important thing for people to understand. You can just do things. You don't need permission. Go just do things. If it doesn't work out, who cares? Come to Austin. I'm sorry. For people, it's so funny. Whenever I tell people how great Austin is, they come up to me and they're like, don't say that. Tell them it's too hot. Tell them that there's cedar fever. We have to gatekeep this. There's too many people coming here. Listen, Austin's had 3% immigration every year. And they, as JD Vance just said, he tweeted, like, how can a place that has that's growing have the rents go down and have housing prices go down 2-3, what will be 3 years in a row? It's because they keep building supply.
They keep building supply.
Duh.
Having lived in San Francisco for a long time, I have such a deep-seated viewpoint on this, and I
Yes.
want to take everyone who's a NIMBY and slowly push them into the ocean. Just
Exactly.
you're
Well, I mean,
killing us.
and it's even worse. It's even worse in the Bay Area because rich people buy the lot next to them. Like Zuckerberg, famously, you can look it up. He bought so many of the houses around him that Palo Alto was like, "What's the plan for those houses?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm renovating them." And it's like, "It's year 8 of the renovations. Did you file renovations?" But he's like, "No, I'm thinking about it or whatever." Like he was kind of slow rolling it. And all he was doing, from my understanding, I don't know if this is true, is buying every time a house became available, he buys it. So here it is. In 2013, Mark Zuckerberg purchased 4 homes surrounding his Palo Alto residence, spending over $30 million. He paid more than they were worth. And we call this, $37 million for 5. They call this like negative population growth. The density in the Bay Area is going down because rich people are buying the home next to you. I almost did this. And then I kind of checked myself and I'm like, am I just buying the home next to me because I can? And then somebody can't live there and raise their family. And then, listen, I got a couple of homes for sale in the Bay Area, and I don't need to sell them. I could sit on them, I could rent them, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I want these homes to be free for other families to have them.
Yes.
And it's selfish for me. It's not like a ski house in a ski town. It's like, do people want to live in ghost towns? And you know what? New York, a lot of the sky rises and lofts are filled with Russian, Chinese money being parked in Manhattan, and they're ghost towns. And people are like, I have a deli downstairs. I'm trying to sell egg, bacon, and cheese, and nobody will buy it. Anything else on the docket here? Let's keep going through this docket because I get on the plane, and there's a couple of other things going around here that we should talk about. Any good startup news? I need some startup news, or maybe any startup lessons. I love a good startup lesson.
Well, why don't we do kind of both at the same time here? I want to talk about barbelling because I think this is the new term of art. And so starting with a tweet from 2024, Ed Sim from Bold Start put out this tweet and he said,
he's great.
People are doing one of two things at the seed stage. They're raising less than 2 million, as little as possible, or they're raising 10 million plus to go as big as fast as they can. And this tweet, I remember from when it came out, but then recently YC just had their demo day, and there's been a lot of commentary from folks about what they're seeing today. And keep in mind, Jason, every YC demo day since time immemorial has involved people complaining about prices and people raising too much. However, things have changed. So here is Nicole Wiskoff of Wiskoff VC talking about the YC demo day that just happened. And she says she's seen barbell round dynamics, either a party round with angels and small feeler checks, or they're going to go out there and raise a crazy round. Solo founders with revenue and no plans to hire more people, even with more cash, are also part of the trend. So to me, we are seeing small team size, AI efficiency, allow people to build more faster with less money. And on the other side, people raising boatloads of cash. Your thoughts?
Static team size. We've talked about it before in the large companies, and that will be, replaced by condensing, workforce compression's coming. So, we've seen the static team size, at places like Uber, Meta, DoorDash, whatever, just get 30% more efficient every year and have your growth be 30% and keep the team size the same. Earnings go through the roof. Which is why even if we're in a recession or they're trying to have a recession, I think owning equities is this is the greatest buying opportunity ever because these companies are so dynamic that they're going to be like, okay, what's the game on the field? 18 price earnings averages, 20, not 25. That's fine. We'll just increase the amount of earnings we have and we'll get our valuation back. So people are dynamic in that way. And so sure. And it's not that founders are deciding they want to go one way or the other. In a lot of cases, the market will tell them. So you go out and you say, here's my vision. And there's a small number of VCs. The number of Series A's is incredibly low. These large rounds are incredibly low because it's a lot of startups. And so VCs might, have a really hard time just dealing with the number of companies. So they pick one. So that makes it appear as though that founder chose to raise 10 million. And this other founder chose to just bootstrap it. And this other founder chose to raise, $1 million. And keep it small and dilute 5 or 10 or 15%. The other one decided to go big. The other one decided to raise nothing. It might also be that they got a certain reaction from the market. And the market gives them a reaction. That could be correct. It could be incorrect. Draymond Green was taken in the second round of the draft. I think Jalen Brunson was taken in the second round draft, and he's MVP candidate. So you can look it up, somebody. There's many all-stars in the NBA who are taken the second round. You know how much money is spent scouting who should go, which 30 players should go in the first round versus the second round? It's insane amounts of research and time and effort are put into that, and they can't get it right. Same holds true for VCs. The hand wringing, it's always been there. In a hot market, things get overvalued. And what I'll tell angels is, I always get asked, and you can read my book, when you're starting out as an angel investor in early stage, if you go to Y Combinator Demo Day, it's been designed to be a high pressure to get dentists and other folks to make snap decisions, which is fine. It's a little bit of gamesmanship, which is fine. All is fair. These are rich people, and literally, they build the demo day around the dentist crowd. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but people with a lot of money who are like, hey, I would like to get involved in this game. And they're not exactly the most sophisticated, and they put high pressure tactics on them. Rounds closing. Here's a piece of advice to you. Go meet 50 people at demo day and then check in with them in 6 months and then see where they're at. Much better strategy for a first-time investor. Maybe make one investment, see how you do. But what you'll find is, of those 50 companies, 49 out of 50 are still willing to take your money. So don't ever feel pressure as an investor. And then the second thing is, of 1,000 founders who say, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to build a product, maybe 100 of them actually release the product. Of the 100 that release the product, maybe 10 of them actually get to revenue. So 1,000 to 10, 1%, right? Actually get a customer that pays them money. My best advice for first year investors is only deal with that 1%. Only give your money, if you're going to make 10 bets, that on the 10 that get the first customer. Why? You've now eliminated the 90 that never get their product to market, the 90%, and then the next 99% that never get a customer. If you just do that one thing, your portfolio will be incredibly different. And these overvalued high cap situations that happen in the pressure cooker, the artificial scarcity that's created in a demo day, that artificial scarcity that's created results in an elevation of valuations that eventually comes back down or stays the same a year later. The round is flat a year later. They're still racing on the same note, but they've got the one customer or maybe 10 or 20. So you can basically make a more intelligent bet. In poker, Alex, this would be like you get ace 9 offsuit and you're out of position. And you say, you know what? I'm going to fold this. I'll let other people play. I'll take a couple of notes. I'll have a sip of my coffee. Maybe I'll go use the bathroom real quick in this tournament. And then you come back and you're in position and you've got ace queen suited. And just that little tweak, ace 9 off, ace queen suited, doesn't seem that dramatic. Take out the tables, look at how those hands play in position, out of position. It's a pretty big gap.
Yes.
And that's what will happen in portfolio management. Go buy the book Angel. Tell me what you think. It's $15. It's a lot of knowledge.
I wanna.
Oh, Angel University, April 23rd in New York. If you want to go, angel.university. All proceeds go to charity.
I want to say though, I think that this is. I agree with you on. People are reacting to the market. I agree with you that there's always hand wringing. But when I read this tweet from Terrence Rohan, he's a seed investor. I think he put money into Figma. He says, the founder of a top YC company in the current batch are on venture capital. And this is a quote. People used to climb Everest and they needed oxygen. Today, people climb it without oxygen. I want to summit Everest and use as little oxygen, venture capital, as possible. He calls it a vibe shift.
Yeah.
And I just think that this is going to change a little bit the relationship between, venture investors, angels, and the dentist crowd and startups, because it does feel like we had Roy on the other day and you're like, Roy, I want to bet on you. And he's like, oh, I'm already at $1 million ARR. Like that's a different world than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you and I were still going to every YZ demo day.
Yeah.
I don't have the right words yet or phrasing or mental framework around the new model, but I think the combination of AI powered tools, cheaper than ever cloud infra to build, infinite distribution, and people just able to do a lot. The old model of SaaS and building expensive enterprise sales teams just feels archaic in the modern moment. And so things really do feel fresh. And I love that.
Yeah, cost structures change. And you know what? We saw it, in content. And so we had an all-in content summit here at South by Southwest yesterday, and this was like one of the big topics. I was talking to a friend of mine, Chris Williamson, who's a podcaster, and Samir and Colin, or Colin and Samir, and they're like a content shop where they sell people courses on how to do great content and build businesses. And it turns out most of the talented people are now having 10-person under teams making millions of dollars, like we're doing here, or at All In. And you watch somebody like Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson, they can do what they do with under 10 people, and they have complete control, and they keep their costs low. And then you look at Fox. Fox has shareholders. So shareholders have to get a dividend, right? So that's going to be some percentage of the overall revenue. Then they have management. Management setting the strategy. They have to get a percentage of the revenue. Then they have a building. And then they have people. And then they have high-priced studios. And if you look at the output, Megyn Kelly doing her show on YouTube with a laptop and a regular old camera, a couple of lights, probably no camera operators. Whereas when she was in studio, there were probably 15 people operating the lights, cameras, and in that switching room. All of that gets abstracted away, which means you don't have to make as much money and you can have bigger impact and you have more optionality. So what we've seen in content, where one person or, a team of under 10, 3 people, 10 people, they can have more impact and it's more lightweight. You have less infrastructure, less overhead. It always starts with startups. Startups are scrappy, and so are content creators because they're entrepreneurs. They try to take a nickel and get $1 of value, and that is the new model. And you're starting to see some of the big companies say, okay, maybe I'm not going to do that, but I'd like to get $1 out of $1. As opposed to spending $10 and get $1 of value, or our government spend $100 to get $1 of value. The age of accountability is here. If you want to compete as a startup, you got to be accountable to that bottom line, and then you're more defensible. He's Alex Wilhelm. I'm Jason Calacanis, and this has been another amazing episode of This Week in Startups. We'll see you all on Monday. Have a great, restful weekend, or build your startup. And if you are building your startup, go to founder.university. We're going to have our 10th class, some big announcements from Founder University. And we're going to invest in 10 companies on the way in, either the 25K first check or the 125K more accelerator check. So we're going to try to invest in 10 companies coming in. So make sure you apply, founder.university, check the box that you want to get funded on the way in, or you could be one of the 30 companies that we invest in during the program. We're trying to hit 500 companies in this cohort. We're trying to hit 5,000 applications, which is roughly double what we normally do. We're trying to scale the program. We're trying to write more 25K first checks, and we're willing to take that risk. The question is, are you willing to get 2 of your friends or 2 random people who are, builders? And are you willing to take the risk? Let us know. Founder.university.
Love it. Bye, everybody.